Today I want to show you 5 easy ways to get that groove, you know, that certain bounce, that swing in your beats. Let's do it. What's up, this is Marrcello. If you're interested in more MPC 1 Live X workflow tutorials just like this one, consider subscribing. Let's dive in. Alright, I loaded up a kick, a clap and hi-hat and an open hi-hat on track 1. On track 2 we got some Foley. Alright, so let's start. First let's bring the BPM down to 90. Okay, let's start with method number 1. Even if you don't have a sense of rhythm like Questlove, you can achieve a groovy beat without timing correct by just setting the length of the sequence to 1 bar. And now let's turn off timing correct. Or double tap timing correct on the MPC 1. And now we only have 1 bar that's being repeated, so let's just play in a pretty wonky pattern. So by repeating just 1 bar played sloppy, it adds a certain regularity to it. So now you have just a 1 bar loop that works. So we want to double the length of the sequence by going here to this pencil, and then here's double the length, and now it will be a 2 bar loop, and now let's make it a 4 bar loop. Okay. You can also, for example, play the kick and the snare using timing correct. So let's turn on timing correct. And now let's turn off timing correct and play the hi-hats without. I played in very sloppy hi-hats, but it still works. Okay, so moving notes off the grid can create a nice bounce. There's also a different, more controlled way to do that, but more on that later. First, let's define a second important factor of groove, which are variations in the sound and in the tone of a sample. So, for example, using 16 levels on the MPC, which is a great feature. I really love that. There is velocity, which I use mostly on hi-hats, because a real drummer doesn't always have a fixed velocity. When it comes to the hi-hat, the first note is often a little louder, so you can use this one. Then it goes down, then up again, but maybe not as loud as the first hit, so maybe you can do it like that. This has a more humane human feel. Okay, let's just record some hi-hats. Is timing correct off? Yes, it's off. Okay, let's record some hi-hats using 16 levels velocity. And now we have another control in the 16 levels page, which is tune, which is cool. But I mean filter. This is really nice. So let's go to the kick. And let's play the kick with 16 levels filter. You see here, it's the normal sample, and here it's filtered. So there's a low pass filter or a high cut filter, which is the same. Okay, let's just play the kick with 16 levels filter. And there's also another interesting thing on on the 16 levels page, which is attack and decay. So you can also play with that, for example, with this open hi-hats. So here it's very soft and it becomes harder, the attack. So yeah, you can add some nice texture to it, and also with decay. So you can just create a closed and an open hi-hat with just one open hi-hat. So like using the decay 16 levels. So this is pretty cool. Let's just delete this hi-hat, erase, note, choose this hi-hat and do it. And let's just play a simple pattern using this open hi-hat and 16 levels decay. Okay. Let's add the snare just for now. Okay, let's move on. Textural elements like Foley or an ambient sample, for example a recording of a bar or people talking on the streets or a river, nature, anything really. This can also add a certain groove because it doesn't fit in a normal rhythm. It's just if you take something out of the nature or something random, and if you repeat this very often, then it can develop a certain groove. So for example, this Foley, I put some Foley sounds on track 2. Let's first go to Program Edit and make the sounds cut each other off by putting the program in the polyphony into mono. And now let's just add some of those Foley sounds, but maybe just turn off timing correct, because the drums are already there. Down. Of course our drum groove is very robotic right now, but now let's work on those drums. I mean, the drums have variation in the sound now, but not in the timing. Let's change that, because this is the most important factor of groove, in my opinion. So let's talk about a more controlled off-grid experiment, or a more controlled way to move the notes off-grid. Let's go to our drums. And now let's just copy this hi-hat to those 4 pads. So hold copy, hit the hi-hat, and then... So now we got the hi-hat on those 4 pads, and let's set the volume of these pads to different levels. So the first one is loud, so let's go to pad mix. The second one is a little quiet. Then this is maybe louder again, and this is quiet. So we have this feeling of 16 levels velocity, but in a very controlled way. And now let's copy the kick to this pad. Hold copy, press the kick. Now we got the kick on those 2. Let's make this one a little quieter. And let's put a high cut filter on it. Go to Program Edit, Envelopes. Here we got the filter, second page, and let's make this one. And also let's soften the attack a little bit. Okay, I like that. So as you can see, we can do more parameter changes than in 16 levels, velocity, filter, etc. So we can do a filter and a soft attack and the level in one thing. So we have this pad. Okay, now let's record a 2-bar loop. Let's go to main. We got our hi-hat and we got those two kicks. Alright, let's record a normal 2-bar loop. Timing correct on. Let's add this kick. It's still pretty robotic, but not for long. Let's start tweaking some things. Let's go to Program Edit, Samples page, choose the hi-hat, the first one. Let's go to Offset, so Samples page, then two times on the Samples page. And here we can change the offset. That means it will delay the sound after the pad is triggered. So if I trigger the pad, the sound's there, but if I change the offset to minus 4000 something, you see, I trigger the pad, but the sound will play a little later. So let's just play the loop and let's change the offset of those four. See, by controlling those four at different offsets, we can just create a very human feel, but very controlled at the same time. So we can control the hi-hat groove. Let's also change the offset of this secondary kick. Yeah. Yeah. You can tweak it further by just automating some drum effects to those hi-hats, for example. So let's go to ring mod maybe. So just maybe or not automating. You don't have to do that. See, we got 4 different settings right now, so, and we can also automate that very easily. So for example, the tube drive, or the high pass. Yeah, let's automate the high pass on this one, just for fun. Activate automation and press play. Yeah, just because we can. Alright, let's also go to samples page and reverse this hi-hat. Yeah. And tune it down. I like that. So we got some pretty groovy things going on, but it's not over here. We can go to pad mix, or we can go to track mix and just set up a return track. return 1. Let's set this return track. Let's just put a delay and a reverb on it. Just see what happens. If we go to pad mix, if we send the hi-hats into this return track. So let's just play. And let's go back to this return track. Just adjust it a little bit. Make the room a very small room. And maybe change the delay. This sounds fun. Alright, let's make another sequence. Track 1, the drums. The most obvious way to add swing to a beat is to add swing. So if we go to timing correct, here's the swing setting. If you turn it up, it will add a certain amount of swing to your patterns. So you can either do that, either set the swing and then record something, and it will apply the swing setting to your pattern and adjust the notes accordingly. You can also apply the setting afterwards, so after you played in a hi-hat you can set the swing setting and apply it to the recorded stuff. It's only important to make sure it's at the 8th notes time division if you don't play 16 notes. So if you play 8th notes, it's important to have it there. So if you just play this normal beat at 90 BPM, it's good to have this at the 8th notes. And let's just try the swing setting at 65. It's my go-to. I just like that. And let's close it and let's record something. Yes, I like that. But now if we, for example, want to change the hi-hats and remove this swing setting from the hi-hats, only from the hi-hats, we can go to timing correct. Sometimes the selected thing, if we select it now, it doesn't work for me. So I go to range, so one step to the right with the jog wheel. Here you can see the hi-hat is selected, and now I make a change. Let's make it 55, just for the hi-hat. And let's do it. This can also lead to an interesting groove. Okay, let's go to timing correct again. What you also can do, instead of changing the offset as we did in the hi-hat in program edit, you can change the shift timing of the hi-hat, for example. So we go to the hi-hat again, we are already there. Shift timing to 20 maybe, or 15. Do it. You can see the hi-hat is getting delayed. The timing is shifted. And you can do the same thing. That can add a interesting bounce if you shift the timing of the snare, just of the snare or of the clap, but not after, not delay it, but make it earlier. Make it come earlier. So let's make it like -4. Do it. Do it. You see? Now this is an interesting groove. And we didn't even vary the velocity or anything. Yes. I like that. So you can just play around and just if you feel a certain groove, if you have to move to that, then I think that's a good sign. Okay, so the same thing can be achieved not with the timing correct, but in the grid view. So if you go to the grid view, you can of course take your hi-hats, select them, or just hit the pad and it will select them. Make sure to turn off timing correct, so you will be able to move those notes in very, very small increments. And it's on the notch, it's already on there, so now you can move all of those hi-hats. The same with this kick maybe. Okay, doesn't sound good, so let's undo. So there's another cool thing you can add to add a certain swing. Let's just copy this hi-hat to this pad and make it pretty, or let's play it first and then make it quieter. So we have this hi-hat is the normal hi-hat, and then we have a secondary hi-hat which will play, or which will be underneath the normal hi-hat and which will play triplets. So let's do those settings to normal again. Let's turn it on, the timing correct. And now let's go to triplet. Now we can play the triplets with note repeat. So shift note repeat. So you can see. Let's just add some triplets to this groove. Of course it sounds strange right now, but let's close it. And now let's make this hi-hat very quiet. Adds a very, very subtle effect. It's actually more of a feel. You can't really hear it, but it's like a little thing. But it's also pretty cool. One more thing. If you go to sequence 3, let's same drum program. If we go to timing correct, if you want to record your beat live, so like with finger drumming or something like that. So if you want a little bit of control but not a robotic kind of timing correction, you can go to timing correct and then you can just lower the amount of strength which is there. So now the strength of the timing correct is set at 80, not at 100. So it will have a more organic feel. So let's just try that out. Let's set it at 80. Do it and record something. You can see it's not as wonky as I played it. Let's go to grid. Let's see, it corrected the notes, but it didn't make them perfect on the grid. So I really like this setting too. I think I'm going to just leave this setting on 80 for me, because yeah, a little bit of you know, creative freedom or like a human feel. So the last method is the most experimental one of those I showed you. Let's use this sequence. So we played a sequence a normal groove which doesn't have a great amount of swing or bounce. Let's bounce this sequence to a sample. So go here, bounce to sample, exporting sequence. So now let's make a new sequence, and now let's go to sample edit. Let's find that sample, bounce sequence 3. So here it is. Now let's chop this one up by using the BPM. So we chopped it up. Okay, now let's create a new drum program out of those slices. Do it. Go to main. Find this program. Here it is. And now let's record something. Still the same. Almost the same. But now let's go to program edit, and now let's just tweak some things, because now we have more control. We have the control over the certain steps, so maybe just soften the attack on those notes. Let's just play. Let's make this pad reverse. Warp this one, make it a little longer. This one as well. Let's just make it 1 bar. So as you can see, this is a pretty experimental way to just find a new kind of groove. But yeah, you can just play around. If you enjoyed the video and if you're interested in a step-by-step guide to great sounding mixes on the MPC and standalone mode, check out this video. I'll see you over there. Peace.